ask about their healthcare and what, do they have trans inclusive healthcare? Do they have healthcare that allows for a partner that you're not married to or living with? Does it allow for adopted children to get benefits? So thinking about the creative ways that queers have made families, and is that reflected in their healthcare is one way that I have found to say, are they thinking about this? Has anybody brought this to their attention? When at times, the idea of a gender policy, a gender identity policy is still kind of a mythical creature to a lot of trades employers. So, finding creative ways to ask about what is their level of DEI, what is their level of addressing on the job issues, talking to the HR. Do they avail any employees of any trainings for DEI work? Managers, foremen, that kind of thing. And then I would also say, so you have the employer in the workplace, and then you have the union. And unions, of course, are powerful and amazing, but also, like anything in the United States, have a history of discrimination and exclusion. And so, if someone isn't making inroads with their employer, sometimes they can make inroads with unions who are often have people that are passionate about workers' rights and saying this needs to extend to LGBTQ folks. Mm-hmm. These worker rights need to recognize that gender identity impacts everybody. What is my union doing to support this? So I think that in the trades, you have to be creative, innovative, and willing to push the envelope.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're talking, I'm seeing so many parallels to the financial services industry. David and I are old enough to remember when diversity and inclusion was starting to be talked about, but that discussion was at that time was being led initially by cis straight white men. It sounds like with the trades industry, especially because there's a need for so many workers, it's almost like it's a perfect time to join an industry because there's we need workers so desperately that these employers are probably more flexible or amenable to adapting than ever before. And if you're an LGBTQ person who's comfortable taking a lead, saying, okay, let me help guide the way what diversity and inclusion actually looks like in this industry. Let me lead this union, or at least be able to lead the leaders of this union to say, this is how you reduce transphobia. This is how you make sure women feel included. This is how you make sure LGBTQ folks feel like they have a seat here because I'm an LGBTQ person and I can help you guide that discussion.
Absolutely. I think that's a really significant leverage point for a lot of LGBTQ folks. Like the trades are so hungry for workers and know that let me restart. So the trades are so hungry for workers and also understand that the culture is shifting and don't know where to go. Don't know where to find this information. What is a pronoun? Why would I even want to talk about it? And so, yes, I think bringing those issues to employers and saying, here's a couple resources, or I'm willing to start an affinity group. Employers want that. They want inclusivity because they want workers. It's a little bit, to me, a bit of, they are just so pressed for workers that this is a point we can say, you have to adapt to this. Here's resources.
Yeah.
Let's make this an employer where people want to come to.
If you want to survive, you have to adapt. It's like we were all inspired by Kinky Boots, right? And the only reason that shoe company is still around. The same thing can happen for trades. You were going to say something more serious.
No, it wasn't necessarily more serious, but I'm wondering, when I think about the trades, I oftentimes think of relatively small companies. Right? These are companies that are maybe 10 employees or less. Are there larger companies? I know that in the past, queer folks have found safety in numbers, right? We go to some of these huge organizations, we go to some of these huge companies, partly because we know that they have an LGBT organization because they've gotten 100 on the HRC index. They're doing things in the community, right? It's a little easier to see that when you have a company that has 1,500 or 10,000 employees in one location. And of course, their LGBT group has 100, 200, 300 people in it. Is there maybe a place where folks who are interested in looking for companies in their local area that they may find that they are already doing something? Are there organizations that they are connecting with that some of these more inclusive employers, maybe an organization that only has 10 people, but 2 of the people there are queer. And because of that, they are connected to a particular association or organization?
Yeah, it really varies quite a bit by region and area. But there are, like, in the Pacific Northwest, you can get certified as an LGBTQ owned company. And so, you have to search, but there are the resources out there to say, where can I find support? Where can I find community? Even if I'm in a small, if I have a small employer, or where do I find inclusive employers? And I think that the employers that are working to be inclusive are putting their flags high. They are trying to be like, we are trying to make a change. Again, up here in the Pacific Northwest, we have Sillon Construction that are working very hard to increase diversity and inclusion, and really partnering with community organizations, saying, what can we do to support you? So it takes a bit of digging, I will say. It takes a bit of work. But people are starting to put out there, yes, we are inclusive. We want to find other companies that are inclusive. We have a partnership with an organization called Matriarchy Build, and they are putting out a website where people can connect with other trade workers about, how do I fix my day-to-day plumbing issue? And they're featuring women and LGBTQ folks and trade workers of color. So the conversations are happening, and you just have to really go out and search for it.
Mhm.
But a lot of unions are also working towards it as well. So it's a bit of digging, but yes, it is out there, and you can find it.
So that's great. So then I'm wondering to myself, so I do want to make a career move, but I haven't ever really thought of getting into trades before. Where do I start? How do I maybe find out what I might be interested in or good at? And then how do I actually get into that then?
So there's a number of different ways. I think a big one is trades fairs. So there's, these events that are happening all the time, all over the country, where employers come together and say, this is why you should get into this trade. You get a bunch of different swag. You usually have a drink or two, and it's fun. It's interesting to see the different folks that are in the different trades and the different companies. So trades fair are a good way. Pre-apprenticeship training programs. Often, as I said, the non-traditional pre-apprenticeship training programs are growing. So looking for those in your area. Also finding mentors. If you have a plumber come into your house, ask, how'd you get into it? Is there a way I can find out more information? Also, vocational schools obviously are a good route. I think that folks should really think about, what trade do they want to get into, and how can they get some exposure to it? How can they figure out what it's actually like? I think going to vocational schools, walking around, talking to folks that are in the industry. And then in terms of, you can also do it through unions. If you're interested in a particular trade that has a strong union, Google carpentry union in Seattle, Washington, and then start to explore it that way as well. See what information can you gather from unions, and then look for community nonprofits like Reckoning Trade Project. There's the LGBTQ Workers Center out of Chicago. There's Pride at Work. There's a lot of different nonprofits that are trying to increase the representation. So start reaching out and asking folks, what do I do? Who can I talk to? Do you have a connection I can make?
Mhm.
Yeah. I think this is really an important thing for for the queer community to be thinking about right now. We saw the numbers after the pandemic, or during the pandemic, how many folks in the LGBT community were either laid off or furloughed or had their hours cut. And for, I think it was 64% of LGBT folks had someone in their household that either lost a job, was furloughed, or lost hours. And I think that speaks to how many of us are in the jobs that may be quick to let people go when things like the pandemic happen, or it just speaks to maybe the insecurity in those kinds of jobs. And if you were working in a service industry job that was no longer able to operate, whether it was working in a bar or a restaurant or hospitality or things like that, you may not find yourself wanting to go sit in a cubicle or go work in an office, or you're not, like we talked about earlier, the way that your brain works may not be the kind of person that is ready to sit in front of a computer all day long, right? This is a huge opportunity for you to shift to something that, as you've brought out, has benefits, has retirement, has unionized support, all of those kinds of things that are most likely were missing in your previous job. And part of the reason why it was maybe so easy for them to let you go are not here, right? I mean, they have all of the things that you want in a little bit more of a secure job that isn't sitting in front of a computer or in an office all day long.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think, a lot of folks I think of in the service industry are often trying to support themselves while they engage in a creative role. So as an artist, as in theater. And I think that the trades can still avail folks the opportunity to be in the trades and have creative outlets and have other outlets, other, ways they want to approach life. And I think that that's something that I am interested in talking more about, is how can the trades encompass the diverse community that we have, everything from folks who are artists on the side, or artists that are trying to make it while be employed and pay their bills, to folks that have children. And how can we make the trades more accepting and accessible for folks with children? The trades often start very early. Many positions start at 6 o'clock in the morning. What do you do with your children during that time? So these are some things that I also think, the trades are a powerful route, but they also need to be pushed and changed and made to be accessible and adaptable, as many of the service industry jobs do, but don't give us the benefits we need. So I would encourage folks, get in the trades, get involved, and know that we have to push the trades to meet the needs of our community, as we have done in many other industries. But it's going to be something that will take work and avail you of a lot of benefits as well.
Yeah. And I think a little bit more altruistically, I think, yes, we're talking about ways that you can find a new career and make more money and have more job security and benefits, hopefully. But there's a housing crisis right now. And part of the reason why there's a housing crisis right now is because construction can't keep up with the demand. You can help expedite that demand and hopefully provide more people more affordable housing. Not that you're going to be the sole solution to that, but it shows one of the problems that the construction industry has is just doesn't have enough people, it can't keep up with the demand, and now people are homeless or can't afford to live in the homes that do exist. And so you can maybe help fix some of that. I think you started to touch on this a little bit, I think, in your last response. But one of the things that you had positioned before we had started talking was that learning a trade is a great way to increase or add additional income streams. Can you expand on that a little bit?
So I'm going to just pull it back. I don't feel like I have a great answer for that. I was thinking about it and I was like, but I'm not sure I can speak to it and feel fully confident.
Okay, that's fine. So this has all been great, very inspiring, and David and I are completely on board with your message. I hope that our listeners are receptive enough, and that I hope our listeners and viewers are willing to share this with the LGBTQ folks that they're connected to, especially younger folks who are thinking about what career opportunities that they have. And everybody's so myopically focused on college and university and going down that path. And yes, that's great. There's a lot of opportunity there, but there are a lot of encumbrances there too. And there are other options. And I think that's what you're presenting to folks. So with that, where can our listeners find more about you, find more support systems to help them sort of decide which industries to get in and ultimately feel like they have a voice and a position in trades?
Yeah, absolutely. So Reckoning Trade Project, we have a website, reckoningtradeproject.com. We also have a Facebook presence, Instagram presence. We're very active on social media, from just everything of talking about what we're doing to also providing information about workers' rights, about transitioning on the job. So our platform provides a lot of information for folks that are interested. We also have strong connections to folks that are in the trades and can connect people with someone they want to talk to, find out more about it.
Nice.
So yeah, I would say on social media, folks can find us at our website. And then of course, our email, info@reckoningtradeproject.org is another way that folks can get a hold of us.
Awesome.
And I want to quickly correct, I gave the wrong website earlier. It's reckoningtradeproject.org, not
Awesome.
.com.
Yeah, no,
We'll definitely link
the
up to
.com
that.
always comes out easily.
Right. We'll link up to that in the show notes, folks. And make sure that you're subscribed to the email, the podcast email. So we'll send that out in the show notes.
Exactly. Well, Morgan, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate you coming on and taking this charge for the community, because as you positioned, it's a great opportunity, not only for the trades industry, but for the LGBTQ community. And I love that what you're doing for everybody.
Thank you so much. And thank you for having me. I think that this kind of exposing folks to different ideas, getting on different podcasts, we all are so connected in what we care about, which is to be open and proud and love who we want to love, and connecting in this way, I think is very powerful. So I really appreciate you having me on and highlighting the work we're doing.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Morgan, for bringing this topic to ours and the queer community's attention. Getting more LGBTQ folks into trades is a possible solution for less student loan debt, more job security, and better wages.
And to our listeners, thank you again for listening to another episode of the podcast. Here's your Queer Money takeaway from this episode. Even for open-minded people, it can be hard to change our established thinking. So we ask that you please give Morgan's message an honest consideration for how getting into a trade may help you or an LGBTQ person you love. Then visit reckoningtradeproject.org for more information and support.
Join us next week when we talk about the benefits of self-advocacy when it comes to your money. It's an empowering discussion we have with Darcy of We Want Guac. Thank you and have a great week.